Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are building a highly practical toolkit for teaching English as a second language, pulled straight from our source material. Whether you're stepping into a classroom for the very first time or you're a seasoned instructor looking to shake up your methods, we've got some fantastic proven strategies to share with you.
Picture this. You're standing in front of a classroom, and your students speak absolutely zero English. Literally, no shared vocabulary, no common phrases. It's totally daunting, right? Where do you even begin when you have zero common ground to stand on?
Well, we're going to answer that by drawing entirely from this incredibly comprehensive guide, How to Teach Different Levels Like a Pro. We'll be extracting the absolute best strategies from this text to help you navigate literally every single level of language instruction.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, tackling absolute beginners. Second, mastering basic vocabulary. Third, politeness and giving advice. Fourth, visualizing grammar and structure. And finally, managing multi-level classes. All right, let's jump right into part 1, tackling absolute beginners and building from scratch. Now, the source makes a really crucial distinction here between false beginners, folks who've maybe picked up a few phrases from movies, and true absolute beginners who have absolutely no linguistic foundation. For these absolute beginners, the text is wonderfully blunt. Assume they know nothing. Don't even think about teaching colors, numbers, or food yet. What do they actually need right this second? They need to know how to introduce themselves and use basic greetings. You've got to get that down first before you even touch verbs or possessives. So how do we bridge that initial gap when they literally can't speak yet? The guide introduces an absolutely brilliant concept, Dr. James A. Asher's Total Physical Response, or TPR. It actually mimics how we all learned our very first language, taking in information and internalizing it way before we ever try to speak. And here's how TPR actually unfolds in the classroom. Basically, you, the teacher, do the talking. You give imperative commands like stand up or sit down, and you get your students physically moving. They respond to your linguistic input with action. The genius of this is that they internalize the language without the immense, terrifying pressure of having to speak it perfectly right out of the gate. It's an absolute game changer for kinesthetic learners, and hey, it requires basically zero prep from you. Moving on to part 2, mastering basic vocabulary, specifically directions and nationalities.
Okay, so once they're up and moving comfortably, it's time to lay down some vocabulary building blocks. Teaching directions is super practical, but the text offers a pretty stern warning here. You must pick one structure and stick to it so you don't unnecessarily confuse your students. For example, if you go with turn right at the first corner, stick with that exact format. Don't suddenly throw in take the next right or go 3 blocks. Consistency is absolutely your best friend here.
Oh, and I absolutely love this physical trick from the text for locking in that vocabulary. To teach left from right, just have your students hold their arms straight out, flex their wrists up, and extend just their thumbs and index fingers. Boom, their left hand naturally forms a capital L. It's such a simple, perfect way to connect physical muscle memory to new words. Now, when expanding vocabulary to nationalities, things can get really tricky with articles. The source suggests a super clear visual comparison. You explain that nationality adjectives, like Spanish, do not take an article, while nationality nouns, like a Spaniard, require an indefinite article. The text notes that laying this out clearly on the board from day 1 is going to save you a ton of spelling and grammar headaches down the road. All right, on to part 3, politeness and giving advice, or as I like to call it, framing the language. So they have the basic words now, but how do we get them interacting smoothly out in the real world? Sure, please and thank you are universal concepts, but the source heavily emphasizes that you shouldn't teach these words in isolation. You have to put questions into context. Instead of just teaching the phrase, how much is this, frame the whole shebang, excuse me, how much is this, followed by thank you. This gives the target language real-world context and basically bakes politeness right into the structural DMA of the sentence. The text also recommends weaving this right into your daily routine by creating flashcards for classroom English. If a student asks for a piece of paper, just wait for that please before you hand it over, and make sure you're modeling it too. Throw out a thank you when they hand in their worksheets. The ultimate goal is to make polite language a completely automatic, stress-free habit. Let's dive into part 4, visualizing grammar and structure through no-prep object lessons. Okay,
Let's tackle something a bit more abstract. The Source has this amazing way to bring complex grammar to life with literally zero preparation. You can use your students as living, breathing, visual representations of grammatical structures. Seriously, instead of just scribbling formulas on a whiteboard, you turn the students themselves into the clauses. Here's how the guide suggests setting this up. Call a student up to the front and have them stand tall. Explain to the class that because this student is standing on their own 2 feet, they represent an independent clause, a simple sentence. Then, call up a second student, but have them kneel. Because they can't stand up alone, they need help, right? So they represent a dependent clause. It instantly creates this unforgettable physical metaphor for how sentences are built. And watch how beautifully this scales up. You can build an entire compound complex sentence right there at the front of the room. Have 2 standing students representing 2 independent clauses, hold opposite ends of a piece of paper with a coordinating conjunction like and or but written on it. Then have one of them link hands with a kneeling student, the dependent clause. Honestly, this visual completely demystifies what is usually a highly complex grammar rule. To really lock that grammar in, the text provides some incredibly dynamic games. If you have a small class, try story time, where you build a narrative together, just one sentence at a time. For bigger groups, Fruit Basket is fantastic. Students sit in a circle and have to scramble to swap chairs if a sentence applies to them, like, I get up at 7:30. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that word order practice does not have to be a boring heads-down worksheet exercise.
And finally, Part 5, Managing Multi-Level Classes, the ultimate test.
This is really the climax of ESL teaching, isn't it? The text makes a fantastic point here. Literally all ESL classes are multi-level, even if they aren't officially designated as such. You might have one student who speaks beautifully, sitting right next to someone who reads at an advanced level, but is absolutely terrified to open their mouth. Keeping everyone engaged means you have to be highly intentional with your planning. This list right here synthesizes the Source's 8-step framework for managing this kind of chaos. It all kicks off with assessments. Do informal interviews or quick writing tasks right on day 1 to figure out what they actually know, and just as importantly, what they want to learn. From there, you can choose overarching themes that are going to be relevant to everyone, no matter their fluency level. The real secret sauce for executing this is what the text calls the whole class to leveled approach. Basically, you introduce a broad topic, let's say family, to the entire room. Then you split them up. Your lower level students might spend time working on basic family vocabulary, while the higher level groups read an advanced article on the exact same topic. The magic happens when you bring everyone back together for a shared project, like building a class website, where everybody contributes based on their own unique strengths. Wow, we have covered a ton of ground today, pulling direct, highly actionable techniques straight from our source material. Armed with total physical response methods, those clever physical tricks for vocabulary, visual grammar lessons, and a rock-solid multi-level strategy, you are absolutely ready for this. So as we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with one final question to chew on. With all these tools in your kit, how will you bring your ESL classroom to life tomorrow?